And a good evening. Welcome, my friends. Good to be back with you. um, the talk that I had set up for tonight, I'm calling it Depression, Creation, and Nirvana. And I think we'll start off with the recognition that whatever state we may be in, happiness, sadness, depression, elation, uh, the real I that we are never changes. This is something that will be emphasized throughout the talk this evening. This is why we meditate. We meditate to actually quiet the mind. So as we quiet the mind, we come to realize there's something deeper than the mind that is aware. The mind is like a machine. The mind operates in most part on habit and memory and imagery and reactive response. And when we are unconscious to our deeper nature, we are completely identified as the mind. And so we feel like we're never stable. We're always up and down. We go through our moods and changes. It's because we are riding the waves of the mind without a rudder. And we have completely lost touch with our deeper nature, which is the rock. Right? This rock that is always stable, always quiet, always silent, always still. And meditation is a way of reconnecting, not even reconnecting, just recognizing, knowing again what we really are. Because if you look at the moon shining on rough water, it looks like the moon might be moving on the water. But when you really look, you realize the moon is always steady and shining bright. It's the water that's moving. And so meditation is the realization that you never move. You never move. You're always stable. If you're familiar with Yogananda, Paramahamsa Yogananda's teachings of Kriya Yoga, he refers to the third eye, which is the witnessing state, this I am that we keep talking about. He calls it in Sanskrit, Kutashcha Chaitanya. It's Christ consciousness, as he often translates it. But Kutashcha means something that's like an anvil. It's something that's so rock solid and never moving. So your witnessing state, the I that you are, has never changed. We've said this before. It's the I that looked in the mirror when you were 2, 5, 25, 45, 75. It's the same awareness, always. It's like the thread on a string of pearls. And the pearls might be different, but the thread runs through them. Your mind stream, your I consciousness is always stable. And so when we talk about depression, we're really talking about identification with what you're not. And the reason why I wanted to talk about depression is because we're going to be looking at the Bhagavad Gita tonight, briefly. And if you know the story of the Bhagavad Gita, it's Arjuna who's the great hero, and he's really a representative of all kinds of humanity. He's us in the symbolism of the story. And then Krishna is an incarnation of God, so he represents our divine self. In the beginning of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, they entitle it in Sanskrit, the Yoga of Depression. Every chapter is the yoga of, mostly. And this first chapter is called the Yoga of Depression. And the reason why it's the Yoga of Depression is because Arjuna, identified as the mind, is looking out at the situation that he's facing, and he's in the conflict of family. He's in the dysfunctional dynamics of family. And he doesn't know what to do. He's at his wit's end. He feels like if he acts, he's going to be, disrupting and breaking bonds that are, shouldn't be broken because he's supposed to be a loving family member. And how loving would it be to break these bonds and to, go against the forces on the other side? Even though they are psychopathic and want to kill him, he still doesn't want to break that respect for his family. And so the Yoga of Depression, it's called the Yoga of Depression because Arjuna goes through all of his excuses as to why he doesn't want to look at the situation as it really is. And he feels completely hopeless and weak and unable to act. And thus ends chapter 1. Chapter 2, Krishna looks at Arjuna and says, you grieve for those who shouldn't be grieved for. He says, looking out and seeing everyone here, and it was a battlefield, he says, if you look out, there's not one person here that never had existed in the past and will not exist in the future. They are immortal beings, and they're temporarily appearing this way. So don't think that you're going to in any way change who they are, because they are the indestructible I am. Everyone is the indestructible I am. They might not know it, and that's why they may, in this case, be acting psychopathically, dysfunctionally. But it doesn't change the rock-solid nature that they are underneath. They're identifying with their mind, just like you identify with yours. So he says, and this is where it really gets juicy, and I think the base of our talk is going to be springing off of this verse. He says, the unreal never was. The real never ceases to be. Those who see to the essence of things have realized this. The seers of the essence realize there is only one reality, this stable, solid, bright, changeless, rock-solid reality, the I am of God. That's all that's really here. That's all that we and every living thing is. This is why meditation is necessary, because right now we're oftentimes identified with our mind, and so we're using our concepts and mental constructs, and we're trying to use the language that we're hearing and make sense, and oh yeah, I remember reading that, and I remember having those things and saw those pictures of God, and we kind of mishmash all these things together in our concepts. But when we're talking about this deeper nature, meditation is vital, because it can only be experienced. You can't talk about it. It really is nonverbal. It's non-conceptual. You actually, and Krishna goes into the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th chapters, saying how you have to, first of all, quiet your mind and don't get pulled with the good or the bad impulses, and get to a place where you're like a candle in a windless place. And let your mind become completely steady. And as that happens, you begin to feel the energies of your being drawing inward. And you begin to feel like there's a tunnel in the center of your heart. And as you go through this tunnel experience, you come to the realization of that deeper state of the I am shining within, the kingdom of God within. But that is beyond words. It's a felt experience. It's intuitively grasped. So as you sit here, allow those words that you're hearing to prompt you to feel into these deeper layers of your being. And guaranteed, if you're willing, grace is going to meet you. And grace will begin to pull you in. And this is going to be also something I want to weave into the talk. When Arjuna is looking outside, his energies are thrown out into the identification with family and bodies, and he's his problems, and he's the moods that he feels in his mind. He's in an experience of life where things are happening outside of him, and he's kind of at the effect level, or oftentimes even feeling maybe like a victim to what's going on out there. And that's where we all start normally, unless we have really good karma and we come in already kind of ripe and ready for the next stage. But most of us are starting at that point of view, that we got here and creation was going on already. And now we're just sort of a part of something much bigger than us, right? And in the teachings of the non-duality of India, they call this, again, I take it or leave it when you hear these words, but it's called Shrishti Drishti. Shrishti Drishti means creation preceded the one who's perceiving it. So you got here. And depending on your worldview, maybe God created this. Or maybe it was a glorious accident of chemical evolution and Darwinian natural selection. Whatever your worldview, you start with the belief that I'm an effect of this big machine or this big event of creation. And so that's part of the depression, yes? Because part of the depression is you're facing forces that are much stronger and immovable in most cases. And that's why we feel sometimes helpless and hopeless, especially with family or world events. There's nothing that little old me can really do. So that's stage one. But as we were saying, when you meditate, you're not only quieting the mind, but you're actually denying all of your mental constructs the validation of your belief. You no longer want to give them validity because they're blocking you from experiencing the God within. And so part of the meditation process is what is called this sorting out, where you only want the real, and you're willing now to let go of the unreal. Like we just said, the real never truly exists. The unreal never truly existed. The real never ceases to be. Thus, the seers of the essence experience that. Well, I want to be a seer of the essence. If I'm not a seer of the essence, I'm in a state of spiritual ignorance. And I believe that the unreal is real. I believe that I'm my moods. I believe that I'm my past. I believe that I'm my story. I believe that the world is bigger and stronger and can tell me what I feel and think. I believe that I can catch colds and suffer from outside forces. That's what I believe, but I'm not a seer of the essence if I believe that. As we go within and quiet down, Krishna takes Arjuna to that next step in the practice. And that's when he says, in order to be a seer of the essence, you have to realize your indestructible soul. And what's beautiful about this is, and it's in guarantee we're all going to have this experience or wake up to who we are. And when we do, it could be at any moment, when we do, we'll realize it was always here. I was always this. What a joke. I was playing on myself. I've been looking for this in everything and everyone. I didn't realize. I am this. I am joy. I am peace. I am abundance. I am knowledge that transcends time and space. I am love itself. And I'm in love with all of life because I am all of life. This is when you begin to become a seer. And that's the second stage of this view of creation. You get out of depression because now it's drishti shrishti. You realize it's the seer that's projecting creation. You're no longer the little cog in a big wheel of creation. You're the projector of it. Your consciousness is actually prior to the events that you're seeing. And actually, your consciousness is causing the events to appear the way they do. This is the second stage, and many, if not most of us, are now kind of breaching that membrane, coming into that experience, and we start sometimes with the teachings of unity, for instance. New thought. What is new thought? My thoughts change reality. As I perceive, so things will happen. As I think in my heart, so will I be. I can change this because it's only occurring as a mental event. All of these teachings, yes, that we learn, the power of thought, the power of intention, the power of attraction. These are all beginning to enter into the state of the seers generating the moment. But it will progress, as we've been saying. You become more and more calm and still until you realize that even the separate sense of self goes away. And the seer is the seer in all beings. Right? That's the soul. And that is who we really are. Okay? And we're going to get into that too tonight with our discussion. The thing to remember also as we're going through this, and we've brought this up before, as we are drawing in, as I had said, when the mind gets still and we begin to feel like we're going through this tunnel towards the radiant center of our being, we will be pulled. It'll feel like a gravitational force perhaps for some of us. But one of the things we have to remember, and I brought this up many weeks ago when we talked about the Buddhist teachings on morality and ethics, is if we don't live in integrity, if our thoughts, speech, and actions are not in alignment with honesty and transparency and compassion, it's like we get encrusted within our heart. And it's like we get, and we'll look at an analogy later on where it's like the needle. If the needle is our attention, the needle gets rusty. And even though the magnet of God's presence is constantly pulling us, if there's rust encrusted on the needle of our attention, we won't feel that pull. We won't go in. We won't experience the nonverbal, non-conceptual, rock-solid state of our witnessing. And it's because we are attached and distracted to the outside world. So again, the necessity of silencing the mind, quieting the mind, and readying ourselves for something that is beyond all that we can think or imagine. Right? That's at the heart of every religious experience, every mystical experience. It's beyond what you ever thought possible, and it's more beautiful and blissful than you could have conceived ever. And it's right here. All that's required of us is we're willing to throw overboard all that we currently think, because it really is resting on a belief that the unreal is real. Okay? So we'll just take a moment and quiet down and just become mentally pliant. Mentally pliant. So there's this prayer, and it goes like this. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from time-bound consciousness to the timeless state of eternity. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And just for clarity, let's get even more dialed into what is meant by the real and the unreal in these teachings. So the real, it goes something like this. That which was not in the past, the features of the unreal, that which was not in the past and which will not be in the future, but that which seemingly exists only in the present, is called the unreal. So it wasn't in the past, it won't be in the future, but it seems to exist right now. That is the definition and one way of defining the unreal. Okay? Another way of defining the unreal, which even goes more into the possibility of liberating, is this. That which is non-existent in the beginning and in the end is necessarily non-existent in the intermediate stages only. Objects that we see are illusions, and they are still regarded as real. Now, the objects that we're seeing outside of us, obviously, are the things and people in the room. The objects that we see within us are our mental states, our imagination, our memories, images, etc. All of these are classified within these non-dualistic teachings as made up of unreal because they're always changing. And, if you want to go Buddhist, they're always combinations of things. The whole universe has to be what it is in order for a chair to be what it is. If you say, oh, that's a chair, you're labeling it with the name chair. But what is a chair? It is made up of innumerable elements, colors, metals. What did we need for the metals to be in the earth? You needed the whole Big Bang. You needed the sun. You needed the soil. You needed gravitational fields to compress on and form those metals. Everything, subtle and not subtle, is in that chair. We call it chair for convenience sake, and we sit on it and we think we know this is a chair. But it's the universe. And not only that, but there's really no chairness at all. Where's the chair? Where is it? Is it in the green fabric? Is it in the metal legs? Where does chair exist? All of these things give rise to the concept chair, but there's really no chairness that you can say exists with all of those combinations being what they are. We label it chair. The same thing with everything else. This is the teaching in Buddhism of the emptiness of things. Nothing really is what we think it is. So not only does it have a shelf life, and it's always coming and going and passing away, but even what we think is here right now, all of our labels and concepts and beliefs, they're all made out of stuff that we don't analyze and never really look and see. None of it is what we think it is. That's such good news. Right? In philosophy, in the Western intellectual tradition, we had this change from modernism to postmodernism, and we got into what's called deconstructionism. And deconstructionism, it went haywire, and that's one of the reasons why our Western culture is off the rails. But in its true nature, it was kind of leading towards Buddhism. If you deconstruct everything, you realize that there's really only an openness that I can relax back into and not get stuck in labels and concepts and false beliefs. Now my heart can open to what is beyond the mind. I can experience the spirit or the Buddha nature. We all must come to that place where we go into zero, zeroing out. And that's where we will discover the radiant self that never changes, that we spoke of earlier. And that's what we want. Right? So what is unreal doesn't exist in the past, present, or future, but we believe it does. The real is that which defies all changes and remains the same in all the periods of time, past, present, and future. Right? So the real never dies. And this is one of the things that we will come to realize as well. When we no longer identify with the mind, the one who's listening, the one who's aware, the one who's awake right now, this bright awareness is the ground of being. Its nature is to be aware. That's its nature. And so it's always going to be aware. You don't remember because you're identified and fixated on perishable things. I think I was born as this body, my story, my life, my world. Everything that we're aware of, we believe is the self that we are, and it's corruptible. But the awareness isn't. And that's what's discovered in meditation. You let everything else go that is changing and time-bound, and you come back to your timeless state of eternity, spirit, awareness, the light of God, the presence of God, Christ consciousness. Call it any concept you will, but it's this awareness that's listening right now. Right? So this is the seer, the one who's projecting the moment. And so there's this third and final teaching on the creation in non-duality. So we go from this, the creation is here before the seer shows up, right? I am my body, I'm a little person, I'm a little ego. And then you start to wake up and you realize, I'm not the little ego. I'm the I am, and my thoughts are powerful, and I'm projecting this moment from my I am consciousness. So that's great. But when that gets fully cooked, everything that's not you falls away, and you realize, I and the Father are one. I and the Father are one. And that leads to the final teaching that can feel like way too much of a stretch for some of us hearing it. But it's called in Sanskrit ajata, birthless. In other words, this creation of the self and the world never really happened. Never really happened. Course in Miracles teaches that when you're done with your dreams and your body and your ego, you will realize you never left your source, and you were none other than your source the whole time. And this was a dream. It was a phantom. It was an illusion or a hallucination. And that's not real. And so it never really happened. Thank God. Thank God. But see, when we're attached and our needle is rusty, that will scare us. It will scare us to think, John never happened? John doesn't really exist? Well, that's something that I don't like. It's only because we haven't really tasted who we really are. It's like that scene in Malcolm X, if you remember the movie. When Malcolm X goes to see Elijah Muhammad for the first time, and Elijah Muhammad pours 2 glasses of water, and he puts ink in one glass and stirs it up, and he hands both glasses to Malcolm X to choose. One's full of ink, and one is pure. And he goes, which one do you want? And he's like, of course I want the clear glass of water. He's like, of course you do. Everybody does. But we don't think we have that option. We think that we have to adjust and adapt to the grunt and grit and depressive state of life. And we've become like learned helplessness. We've just acquiesced to our state. And we're the masters of creation. Truly. We can't hear that right now, maybe because our needles are too rusty and we're too bent on identification with form and things that are corruptible and unreal. But that's who we are. So you're always, once you taste the purity of yourself, you'll never want the ego again. ever. Okay. Let's just look at this a little bit more here. So it says, this is the teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi. And Ramana used to explain the method of creation in 3 ways. Right? This is just a review for us. And it's based on the spiritual maturity of the questioner. So first is the Shrishti Drishti. The world has been created already prior to our seeing and is distinct and separate from us as the seer. The second stage is Drishti Shrishti. Our vision, our seeing indeed is the cause of the creation of this world. It's our dream. We're projecting it. Right? That's a deeper stage of development or spiritual maturity. Right? And then finally the Ajata. Neither has the world been created, nor is it being seen. And Jesus in A Course in Miracles says the culminating teaching of the atonement, which is the Course's gift or teaching, is that the separation never happened and the ego doesn't exist. That's what we'll realize. And that is the unborn state. We've never left our source. We're eternal, immortal beings. We were never born. What is born will die. We will never die. What shows up in time is limited and form-based. We are not limited. We have no form. We are imageless. We are the awareness itself. In fact, the universe is arising within our awareness. Okay? So this is, again, concepts, ideas, but if you begin to sit still and allow yourself to know that at the very center of your heart right now is this memory, right? That you are Buddha nature. Then you begin to realize that this is really the whole purpose of my existence, is to find out who I am. Because otherwise I'll be identified with the unreal. So this is taken from one of the great Mahayana Buddhist scriptures, the Diamond Sutra. This is chapter 3. This is the Buddha speaking. All living beings, whether born from eggs, from the womb, from moisture, or spontaneously, whether they have form or do not have form, whether they are aware or unaware, whether they are not aware or not unaware, all living beings will eventually be led by me to the final nirvana, the final ending of the cycle of birth and death. And when this unfathomable, infinite number of living beings have all been liberated, in truth, not even a single being has actually been liberated. Why? Subhuti, his disciple. Because if a disciple still clings to the arbitrary illusions of form or phenomena such as an ego, a personality, a self, a separate person, or even a universal self existing eternally, then that person is not aware of the authentic teaching. In other words, there is one awareness that is always liberated, always joyful, always at peace. And that is who's listening right now. But who's listening right now is also experiencing a dream. And what these teachings are designed to do is keep nudging you as much as you're willing to be nudged to turn around and look. Go within. Realize you're the seer. not the seen. You're the awareness, not the objects of awareness. What is the nature of that awareness? Who are you really? Feel it, know it. Put all of your attention on it. It's the pearl of great price. It's the treasure hidden in a field. It is the kingdom of God within you. And once you find it, everything else will be added onto you. You won't need to ask for anything. You won't need to seek for anything because you found what you were looking for, and it was here the whole time. Nothing is outside of you. So put differently, but the same, is this teaching in Lesson 70 in the Course. My salvation comes from me. Now listen to this. So remember, with the Course's teaching, we are coming upon this deepening of spiritual maturity. We're beginning to know that the seer is projecting this moment, and what we think is powerful. And if we think negative thoughts or ego-identified thoughts, we create more pain and difficulty for ourselves. And if we think Holy Spirit or divine thoughts, wholesome thoughts, compassionate thoughts, then we actually feel lighter, freer, and more luminous, right? Because consciousness is really at the heart of every moment, and I am this consciousness. So the salvation of the world depends on me as this consciousness. He says, all temptation is nothing more than some form of the basic temptation not to believe the idea for today. Salvation seems to come from anywhere except from you. So too does the source of guilt. You see neither guilt nor salvation as in your own mind and nowhere else. When you have realized that all guilt is solely an invention of your mind, you will also realize that guilt and salvation must be together in the same place. In understanding this, you are saved. What is guilt? Suffering beliefs, the beliefs that I'm helpless, the beliefs that I am my past, that I'm a victim or a victimizer, whatever. These constricting, fear-based thoughts, he says they're inventions within our mind. So that's good news too, because they can easily be shined away now. I'm not stuck because of what happened back there that I can't change anymore. I tell myself that, don't you, sometimes? That because of what happened with that person or those people or that situation 10 years ago, I'm always going to have that memory. I'm always going to carry that. I'm always going to feel like I can't get over it. And that's not true. I'm inventing it. It's an invention. It's a mental construct. And I will only know that when I realize salvation is in the same dimension of my mind as that fear and guilt. And as I get really quiet, I begin to realize that I can choose to have the light within my mind shine away these mental constructs or inventions. They're unreal. They're made up of belief. They're not the rock solid light of God within me. I could be free now. I don't have to carry my past anymore. I'm not a victim of it. And I really didn't abuse or hurt or betray or kill that person. That's what we realize. Not from an ego point of view, but from grace. That's what changes the whole game. We're no longer that old self. That old self is the scar. He says the seeming cost of accepting today's idea is this. It means that nothing outside yourself can save you. Nothing outside yourself can give you peace. But it also means that nothing outside yourself can hurt you or disturb you or upset your peace in any way. That takes getting used to, doesn't it? Especially when we feel it, right? Sometimes people, it will appear, trigger us, and we get into this story that they just did something to me. This is why it's really important to cultivate meditation, because you're building inner strength. That's a key teaching in the Gita, in Krishna's teaching. He says your mind becomes so steady, as we mentioned, that you're not going to move with negative reactions or positive. You'll stay as the witness, and you'll realize that is a passing thought, and I'm not going to follow it. I'm not going to give my belief or sanction to it. And I realize I'm doing it to myself. It's only what I choose to make real that will affect me. Everything is an experience of my own choice. Salvation comes from me. Nothing outside me can hurt me or upset my peace in any way. And I hold to that because it's pointing me in the direction of this luminous ground that is changeless and unshakable. And I want that now. I know it offers everything I want, and I will not be led away by shadow. Okay? A couple more points here. There is nothing outside you. That is what you must ultimately learn. For it is in that realization that the kingdom of heaven is restored to you. For God created only this, and he did not depart from it nor leave it separate from himself. The kingdom of heaven is the dwelling place of you, the child of God, who left not his or her father and dwells not apart from him. Heaven is not a place or a condition. Listen now. Heaven is not a place. That would be in space. And it's not a condition, because that would be an experience in time. Heaven is merely an awareness of perfect oneness and the knowledge that there is nothing else. Nothing outside this oneness and nothing else within. Total transparency and infinity, all-encompassing, omnipresence. And you are that. We are that. We are heaven. Get used to it, my friends. It's coming for you. You're coming for you. Let's see, final one here. So a little bit about that rusty needle, I think, will be very helpful for us. Okay. So this again is Sri Ramana. He says, if in practice the attention is restrained on focusing within, then a power will arise from within, which will bring the mind under its control, taking it into the heart and uniting with it. If you ask, what is this, which is called the power of divine grace, it is the infinite light of your own being. Right? It's you. Which is of the form of great grace and compassion, and is of the very nature of the ultimate self, which shines in the heart as I. Right? So this is the other beautiful thing. We have identified I with everything that is corruptible. The body's going to die. The I am this or I am that is always referring to things that change and go away. I am a daughter, I am a son, I am a wife, I am a mother, I am an executive, I am a day laborer, whatever. These are all temporary designations, and it's a misapplication of the I. What he's saying here, and what is the experience, is when you remove all of the dust from the mirror of your mind by these false associations, the I that you're saying I from goes back into God. And there's one I. And you've always been it. It was just smoke and mirrors. That's so beautiful. And it's so natural. And it's so simple. Your I is the only I in creation. And it's everything you want. But it's being mistaken with all these corruptible things. That's why we have to get quiet and be willing to let go of all these beliefs. If the rust is removed from a needle lying in a magnetic field, it will naturally be attracted to the magnetic source. Therefore, we should not think that the magnetic force comes into being only after the rust was removed from the needle. The magnetic field in its nature always possesses its full power of attraction, does it not? Although the needle was all the while lying in the magnetic field, it only responds to the pull of that magnetic field to the extent that the rust is removed. Similarly, all the striving to abandon the outward perspective and to place the focus on self-attention is analogous to the removal of the rust from the needle. So the result of our efforts is to be brought under the power of the light of the heart, the magnetic field, the grace field, and the knowledge which shines, seizing and swallowing up everything in the spreading rays of itself. Those who are spiritually extremely mature will not resist this power, which is the light of the heart, and will willingly succumb to its control. The rest will be afraid, turn back, and return to their outward view. Right? Therefore, we should cultivate in ourselves a state of spiritual maturity through the intensity of our desire to know ourselves, which is really love. It's love of God. Because if your I is the I of God, wanting to know the nature of your awareness is love of God. How intimate. And through this desireless or detached state, in which we do not hanker or lust after a second or third person phenomenon, we come to the immediacy of the I am. Then, as the separate individuality of the spiritual seeker is swallowed up, her very efforts cease to be, and thus she rests in the silence of her own I. Okay? Is that clear? We know the story of Rumi, that Rumi tells in his Mathnawi, where the seeker goes to the house of God or the friend and knocks on the door. You've heard this story. And from inside the house, without opening the door, the friend, God, says, "Who is it?" And the seeker says, "It's me." And from inside the closed house, the voice says, "Go away." And all the seeker wants is God, and yet feels dejected that it can't get into God's house. it goes away and works on himself. Deep inquiry, deep attention, letting go, letting go, letting go. Comes back, cooked, knocks on the door. The door opens. Oh, sorry, jumping the gun. Knocks on the door, the voice from within says, "Who is it?" And the voice from without says, "It is you." The door opens. And the friend says, "Welcome. There was not room in my house for two eyes." And that's our journey to a place we've never left. We've never ceased to be this I. Put all of your attention on discovering it, because it is the only thing in this world that will get you out of suffering. This is your ticket. Huh? All right. Let's just sit and digest. And it is taught in Sufism that the sound that opens us up to the timeless and spaceless experience of God's I, our I, is the vibration of who. And so if you want to join in, we'll run that a few times. Breath out, breath in. Namaste. Blue bag is going to go around. If you're joining on YouTube or Facebook, remember you can click the link below and donate to the 5 p.m. service, and we thank you for that. Phenomenal. With a little flair. We bless the offering. May it be filled with the happiness and joy of our eternal being, bringing it to remembrance for all. And so it is. Amen. Thank you. All right, my friends, let's seal the deal. And as we come to rest in this holy instant, this eternal, endless moment of the divine now, we realize that the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Amen. Beautiful evening, I wish you. And maybe Monday night, we'll see you. 7:15. Thank you.